Several days ago, there was news of an agreement for an evacuation from Yarmouk, the big Palestinian refugee camp near Damascus that had been under siege and warfare for years. But then the reports were that the evacuation had paused. I'll be speaking about this with Nidal Bitari. He's a Palestinian who was born in the Yarmouk camp. He is currently programs manager at People Demand Change. He'll be speaking to us from Washington, D.C. Good morning.
Good morning, Sandy. Thanks so much.
So there are conflicting reports about this agreement. Who is being evacuated? Fighters or civilians or whole families? What is this plan for evacuation?
Actually, this agreement was supposed to evacuate ISIS fighters and their families from Yarmouk camp. And actually, it's not a new agreement. This agreement was supposed to be implemented 2 or 3 months ago. But for logistic things or problems or disagreement between the regime and ISIS, it was postponed. And 2 weeks ago, about 150 families, they are the families of ISIS, or part of the families of ISIS were evacuated from Yarmouk.
Mm-hmm. And how many, so 150 have left, and how many more remain?
Well, actually, as far as I know, according to the information I have, all the fighters of ISIS and their families, about 2,500. 500. But what happened is when the agreement was signed between ISIS and the regime, ISIS inside the southern area in Damascus asked the people who want to live with them to put their names in a list. So according to the news, about 5,000 will be evacuated, or the plan is to evacuate 5,000 from the southern Damascus to Arraqqa in the northeast of Damascus.
Now, were these people Palestinians, or were they the ISIS people I'm talking about? Did they come in, I forget now, 6-7 months ago when we've heard that ISIS had come into the camp? Who are these people?
Actually, you can find some Palestinians among ISIS fighters, but almost all of them they are Syrians, and there are some foreign fighters, and they came from out of the camp by April, the 1st of April 2015, as you remember. So these people were before they are ISIS, they were Jabhat al-Nusra, and before they were part of other armed groups in southern Damascus. And yes, there is some Palestinians among them.
Mm-hmm. Now, how many? So 2,500, even if at all 5,000, that's still a small part of the people in Yarmouk. How many would you say are still in Yarmouk?
Actually, first of all, let me explain something. These 2,500 fighters and their families, they don't live inside the Yarmouk camp. ISIS is in the neighbor area of Al Yarmouk camp, in an area it's called Al Hajar Al Aswad, the Black Stone. So, and their families are in Al Hajar Al Aswad also, but they don't live inside the Yarmouk camp. They have some centers and checkpoints that allow them to control the camp after they occupied it. And the civilians inside Yarmouk camp, they actually, after the invasion of ISIS, the number came to 5,000. and because all the other civilians who were inside camp Yarmouk, and they were about 18,000, like of them left to other areas around the camp when ISIS entered the camp.
So last April there had been about 80,000, and then now it's only 5,000.
Yeah, there was about 18,000.
Oh, 18. I'm sorry,
18,000. Yeah, and now they are about between four to 5,000.
And then before the war was about a half million living there.
Before the war, the Palestinians inside the camp were 150,000 among about 800,000 of the population of the camp.
My gosh. So where are these people? 150,000. Where are they now?
Well, part of these people left the camp to Damascus, and part of them could flee Syria and all to Turkey or Lebanon. Who left to Turkey? They are all almost now. They are all in Europe. I mean, there is in Europe about between 70,000 and 100,000 Palestinians. They are all from Syria.
Wow. It just seems to get worse and worse. I mean, is there any optimism in Yarmouk that after ISIS leaves, things might get a little better?
Well, actually, let's just remember the problem of Yarmouk was not only ISIS, because it's still under siege, and this agreement doesn't mean that the regime will lift the siege. Now, I believe that when ISIS goes out the camp, other battalions will come and fill the gap inside the camp, like Knaf Beit al-Maqdis and other armed groups in southern Damascus.
So wait a second. Could you say that again? Who would come back in?
Other armed groups,
and
to fill the gap that ISIS would leave after they go out of the camp. So I don't think that it will only solve the problem which is related to ISIS in Damascus, but it will not solve the problem of the camp.
Now, you mentioned the word siege, and I wanted to ask about the UN. Back at the end of the summer, the UN took Yarmouk camp off the list of besieged places. What was that about?
Yeah, actually, it was an understandable decision. Why? Because as far as I remember, it was OCHA who took the camp out of the list of the besieged areas. That was because they think that people of the camp are able to get assistance from outside. Like there is convoys coming into the camp, like food and medical assistance. But actually, it's these assistance are not coming into the camp. These assistance go to the neighboring areas, and people go to the neighboring areas to get this assistance. So I mean this decision, I believe it was a political decision more than it is a real reflects the reality on the ground, because it's still the same. People are unable to get assistance. People are unable to go to go out and in the camp. So yes, I think it was just like a political decision, just to get rid of the cause of Yarmouk camp, because it's very complicated and no one could contribute to solve it.
Now, the camp, I mean, how large is the camp? Could you compare it to a neighborhood in the United States, or is it the size of Washington, D.C.? I mean, it must be a total ruin by now.
Actually, it's only like 2 kilometers square, so it's not that big.
Mm-hmm.
But it has a lot of buildings, and it was expanded in the last 20 years. So, and when we say Yarmouk, we mean two main streets, Yarmouk and Palestine streets, and also some other areas like Tadamon. Sometimes they include it in with Al Yarmouk camp. So it's only like 2 kilometers square, but it's a very populated area, and because people built a lot of like buildings and expanded their properties there inside the camp.
Could we close by asking about this group you work for, People Demand Change? Well, what does it demand, and how big is it?
Oh,
And so
actually, we do aid and development in Syria and Yemen. We have an office in Turkey where we operate from there inside Syria in the north and south. And we do like we do work for capacity building for the civil society inside Syria more than anything else.
And do you have a website for people who want more information?
Yeah, it's www.peopledemandchange.com.
Well, thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you so much for having me.
This has been Stanley Heller for The Struggle. Thanks, everyone, for listening.